Hello, world. You're listening to Business Podcasting Made Easy on the #1 global business talk and news network on the internet, IBGR, International Business Growth Radio. Welcome to the Influencers Formula, where you get a roadmap to instant authority and thought leadership with a podcast that you're proud of. This is a very special week because we have a special guest, publisher Chris O'Byrne. I am Donna Cundy, co-founder of the IBGR Network, Global Radio Authority, podcast expert, and producer of over 14,000 podcasts.
And I'm Ben Joya, 3-time international best-selling author with teachings that reach more than 50,000 people worldwide, all thanks to leveraging my books. So we are your hosts for this 13-week journey, not to mention this guy over here, Chris O'Byrne. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, good to be here. I'm looking forward to just helping people learn more about publishing.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that. And before we jump in, remember that if you want direct live support from us for your business podcast, then contact us today at ibgr.info. And this week, as always, we'll be keep walking you through, someday I'll get that verb right, through an easy to follow, proven plug and play way to get your podcast done 13 minutes at a time in just 13 weeks. So follow the formula each week, and welcome to the show.
Yes. And what we have for you this week on our 4 little topics, not little topics, they're really big ones, actually, because we're bringing in the wisdom from publishing over 12,000 books with our guest, Chris O'Byrne. And he's also a best-selling author and owner of Jet Launch Publishing. And what we're going to cover in the first 13 minutes is the Wild West of book writing and publishing, how to survive the Badlands without losing all your gold. We're going to go into misconception number 1. It's better to be traditionally published than self-published. Not sure about that. There's another misconception that says you can do, air quote, good enough editing and book design, so there's no reason to pay for it. And then we're going to wrap up this 4-part segment with misconception number 3, that you need to launch your book immediately after it's published. And the only reason for a launch is to sell a lot of books. And I'm sure Chris is going to really enlighten us on those topics there.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we jump in, just a recap of last week. So last week was all about leverage, from podcast to an interactive ebook was one segment. Then we talked about memberships, things like Twitch, Clubhouse, podcast communities, and that ilk. We talked about leverage going from podcast to an evergreen course, and the idea of making money while you sleep. Like, yes,
Love
that's
that.
for real. And other part of leverage in all of this, and you don't have to do this all tomorrow, remember that, but going from podcast to a high ticket mastermind or some kind of group coaching. But before any of that, before thinking about that, let's stay with the publishing and let's head out to the Wild West. Right? How to survive the Badlands without losing all your gold, right? And I've always loved Charles Bukowski. He's not to everybody's taste, but man, what a wickedly fantastic writer. And he says, much publishing is done through politics, friends, and natural stupidity. So we're going to help you avoid a lot of that today, thanks to our friend Chris O'Byrne here. So Chris, first of all, why is surviving the Badlands of the publishing world without losing your gold so important for our listeners? What would you say about that today?
I'd say that one of my favorite quotes is forewarned is forearmed, because the wonderful thing about publishing today is that there are so many options, but the downside, of course, is that there are so many options and there are so many more ways that you can get scammed. And so hopefully we can help people avoid that.
Yeah, the scamming, because there with all the options, with the opening up of the internet, and especially after COVID, every mom and pop now is online saying that they're an expert in this or an expert in that. And you know, with our listeners, we always like to follow a format about what you need to know. So it's easy to avoid the most common publishing mistakes, especially when you work with the right publisher, because why, Chris?
Well, it becomes a matter of trust. You know, you need to know enough about the publishing world today to have some sort of, intelligent decision-making ability. And then 2, you have to learn who it is you can trust. There are probably thousands, I know there are many thousands of people out there who claim they can help you do this or that. Some of them are amazing, many of them are not. So how do you know? And it ultimately it's going to come down to trust, and part of that is trusting yourself and what you've learned, trusting what you can and can't do, and then trusting referrals and recommendations. And
That's good.
yeah, those are some of the keys right there.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. I
With the
appreciate.
Oh, sorry. I was so curious. The publishing mistakes, like what are the common ones? We talked about some of the misconceptions that are coming up, but what are the, top, I don't know, 5, 4, 3, 2, what are some of the common ones?
Well, I'd say the common mistakes are one, and we'll talk about that later when we talk about traditional publishing, and that's thinking that one, you need to be traditionally published to be the real deal, and that it's the way to go. And if you can't get that, you'll settle for self-publishing, as if self-publishing really is a thing. It's all publishing, so that's a big mistake. Thinking you can do it on your own. Sure you can, but thinking you can do it on your own, well, that is a mistake. Some pieces, sure, some people, they've already done editing, or they've already done this piece or that, so that's another big one. Trusting what you see on the internet. It was on the internet, I saw it, it's got to be real.
Bonjour.
Well, their website says they'll do this, and this. Yeah, that's just kiss your gold goodbye. It'll be gone, and thinking that you don't have to pay very much, like you can get by. We've had a few authors that are like, I think maybe 100 or 200 for everything sounds fair. I'm like, you don't have any idea what's involved if you think that's what's fair. So those are some of the big ones. And a lot of it is being ignorant and choosing to stay ignorant. That kind of sums up a whole lot of it right there.
Yeah.
That's powerful. I like what you said about editing, because I was an editor for a while for the military, and you, as a writer, you don't know that if you make sense or not. Somebody else has to really get those eyes on there.
Yeah.
I appreciate you both saying that. And I often, when I talk with clients about this, I'll use the analogy of pizza, right? That there are a lot of publishers and book coaches out there. And let me just focus on publishers for a moment, right? Who will offer you a slice of pizza, and they'll say, hey, this slice of pizza is going to feed your whole family. And you're like, I'm not really sure if that is true. And now they're like, no, it really will. Right. And absolutely not. Right. So part of the not being ignorant in the mix here is also understanding the strategy behind your book, right? Like, as Kevin Costner said in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. Bull crap. That is not, it doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. Maybe if you're Oprah, right? Maybe if you're Deepak Chopra, like, yes, sure. But otherwise, for us kind of mere mortals, right, who are not going to be selling tens or hundreds of thousands of books, right? We want the whole pizza pie, and you want to have it in the way that's really going to support your business comprehensively.
Yeah, because I hear of I have colleagues who have garages full of books and they don't know what to do with it, and we're going to help you avoid that for our listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I love that we're going to get into some of the, debunking some of the biggest myths and misperceptions about publishing. So, you listener can make the right choice for your book or your business. Chris, what's like the biggest myth or misperception? I know you've mentioned some so far, but what's another big one that stands out for you right now?
Well, getting into the book launch. I mean, once your book is done. So the biggest mistake is thinking once your book is done and it's like up on Amazon, that you're done. The gold's going to come pouring in. Life's going to be beautiful. You're going to be on, the latest talk shows, and you don't have to do anything. Nope. I've seen so many people sadly try that, and they end up selling, I mean, really next to nothing, like a few handful of books. So that's a huge one, is thinking that once your book is done, you're done and your job is done. And really, and especially depending on what you want to do with your book. If you're using your book to grow your business or to help in any way like that, I would hope that you know that that's really not going to be the case. But then it's like, well, okay, well, how do I use my book? How do I leverage this book and this opportunity to connect with people and all the different things you can do?
Yeah.
So being aware of that is a big plus. Thinking you're done when you're done is the mistake.
Right, totally. Yeah, one of my favorite myths that I share with folks is, that you have to sell 20,000 plus books to make $100,000. And it's like, no, you don't. You actually have to sell 0 books, right? Instead, you develop relationships with the 1 to 10 people who can get you to that number and much beyond by leveraging those kind of relationships.
That's great. And for our listeners, if you want more information on this, if you want more support from any one of us, Chris, myself, or Ben, for your business podcast, for your book, for your publishing, you can contact us at ibgr.info, ibgr.info. We'd be happy to get on a Zoom with you and get those questions answered, get that support to you. And while you're at it, you might as well subscribe to the influencersformula.com. We're just about wrapping up our 13 weeks, but there's still some more come. So be sure to subscribe while you're there as well.
And as we're wrapping up this first segment and laying the groundwork, right? Heading off into the sunset.
Clip clop, clip clop, clip clop.
Whatever other
With
analogy.
the coconuts. Yes, totally. Why did we not bring coconuts?
Just that we invite you to really listen, take notes, and get ready to publish your book, right? Like going through the process of the podcast, as you've heard us say many times before, is like 80% of the book right there. So, right, like, hey, pay attention, right? It's not that hard. Pay attention, take the notes, and get ready to publish that book because the world needs you right now, if not sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've already done the heavy lifting for the writing of your book. If you've been following the show, you know that you're about 80% done just by completing your 52 weeks. We do have to end it here though, but we have 3 more episodes coming up with Chris O'Byrne. You've been listening to the Influencers Formula. This is episode 41, the Wild West of book writing and publishing, how to survive the Badlands without losing all your gold, with our guest, Chris O'Byrne, in the series Business Podcasting Made Easy on the IBGR Network. I'm Donna Cundy.
I'm Ben Joya.
I'm Chris O'Byrne.
And we'll see you soon.